The Japanese Prime Minister has just touched down at the Palam Technical Area. Fumio Kishida, the Prime Minister of Japan, with his contingent, has just landed in Delhi. The bilateral between the Japanese Prime Minister and Prime Minister Modi will be taking place tomorrow. So we've got all of that information for you. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida took office as Japan's Prime Minister in October 2021. He takes forward a legacy of very close relations between India and Japan, following the Prime Ministership of Shinzo Abe, who is unfortunately no more. The welcoming committee for Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who is here along with his wife and his contingent. The volume of trade between the two countries has increased dramatically. India was the 18th largest trading partner for Japan. Japan was the 13th largest trading partner for India in 2021, and that is set to go up quite dramatically. The G20 Summit took place on the 28th and 29th of June 2019 in Japan's Osaka, and now it is in India. The Indian Prime Minister had, of course, attended the G20 Summit in Osaka in 2019. That was when Shinzo Abe was the Prime Minister of Japan, and now Fumio Kishida, the Prime Minister of Japan, is in India for the G20. India-Japan relations on technology, on AI, on climate change, on security. Remember, Japan is part of the Quad, and India and the United States, Australia and Japan make up the Quad of military powers that could come together in times of conflict, not just in an international alliance. That aspect will also be taken forward between India and Japan. Two big leaders have just arrived within about 30 minutes of each other. The British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. They both have their bilaterals with the Indian Prime Minister tomorrow. Today's bilateral schedule by the Indian Prime Minister are with Joe Biden, the President of the United States, who touches down in about 4 hours from now, the Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who has already arrived, and the Mauritius Prime Minister, who arrived in the national capital yesterday. So it's a busy schedule that has already kicked off with all of these world leaders now on Indian soil. There are a few more who will be arriving. President Biden touches down at about 7 p.m. The UK and Japanese Prime Ministers arriving within about 35 minutes of each other, and both now in India's national capital. A very warm welcome extended to each of the world leaders who've arrived. Joe Biden arrives at 7 p.m. Fumio Kishida is also staying at one of Delhi's luxury hotels, and his big bilateral with the Indian Prime Minister is scheduled for tomorrow. There are more leaders who will be arriving shortly. Remember, there are over 23 world leaders expected to touch down today. Many of them already have. Prime Minister Meloni of Italy arrived a short while ago. Sheikh Hasina, you see there in that second image from the right. Rishi Sunak and then Fumio Kishida. Just 4 of the several others who've already touched down. The Nigerian president had arrived a couple of days ago. He had some medical appointments in the National Capital Territory that he has attended to, so that's why he arrived a little earlier than the others. The Argentinian president has also arrived. Brazilian president and other leaders will be arriving very shortly. Remember, the two notable absentees, Xi Jinping of China, Vladimir Putin of Russia, the Mexican president, are not attending the G20 Summit this year for various reasons. We've been putting that into context for you. There are many reasons why Xi Jinping, for instance, has decided to skip. But as you can see in these images, the body language, the fervor, and just the tone and tenor of these pictures and these optics, that the G20 is already a success. Now, there are some hiccups as far as the Delhi Declaration is concerned, but all of these powerful world leaders in one place today, tomorrow and the day after will be hammering out what the Delhi Declaration will be in terms of a new world order and a declaration where India's presidency has seen one of the biggest. I want to also give you a sense of the arrangements around not just the G20 summit, but the surround sound and what's happening in other parts of the national capital to keep the world leaders, their spouses, the first ladies, and their contingents entertained and occupied during the G20 summit and those long meetings.